We're back after a couple of weeks off with the ninth episode of the Hub Scale podcast. Most of our guests have been sales leaders, but this week we have the field CISO of Fortinet, John Jacobs. Really excited to have you on, John.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Elliot. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So today we're going to talk to a lot about the differences between sales and SE. So I'm really excited to get into this with you, but it'd be awesome if you could give everybody and all the listeners a quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks again for having me. And so my career in tech started pretty early. I originally started out with computer-aided design, CAD designing, self-taught computer networking in the late 90s when I really saw this as part of where the industry was going and where things, kind of cool things were happening. Got in the engineering space when broadband really started to kick off, and I date myself a little bit here, but digital subscriber lines, for those that remember them, that was sort of the trend. And so went into an organization that did that, worked for Level 3 Communications, which was acquired, but was a really huge ISP at the time. And then went over to the vendor space. I've been in the vendor world for about 18 years, and it's been a tremendous experience. Most of that was spent in SE leadership, and I think that's going to be a great part of our talk today. It's honestly been a huge highlight of my career. And right now in the field CISO role. So I've been in this role for a couple of years, and it's been a very interesting experience. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it sounds an amazing career. Obviously, I mean, you've spent nearly 10 years now at Fortinet, climbing through the ranks, and it's been an amazing journey as well to look through. But so I guess just explaining regarding the field CISO role for people that don't know, and including myself. Obviously, I do a lot more on the go-to-market and the sales side. So it'd be great to understand just what is the role and what effect you have in the organization.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because it definitely is the first question that comes up. Like, what is the title, the field CISO? I mean, really, the CISO title probably came to be only, 5 to 7 years ago. And really, CIOs recognized that there was just too much. CTOs recognized there was too much complexity and security for them to take on. And so they created this role. A lot of times it was the director of security or the vice president of security that was really promoted and given that title. From a vendor perspective, that we've created this role called the field CISO. And this is ultimately where the CISO's job is to understand business and the technology and security, how it combines with their business. Mine is to, and the field CISO is to understand that across multiple businesses. So to aggregate that information across multiple businesses and say, what are the ultimate trends? Where are the real challenges? Where are the key solutions that people are looking? There's always a real challenge for people that say, well, you're going to be biased. You work for a vendor. And ultimately, I really try to avoid that. It certainly creeps in. We can't, but I really try to avoid that and look at it abstract and say, where are the real challenges? What's happening in the industry today? Where are we going? Yeah. And then apply the right types of solutions. Some of those are ours. Some of those are partners. Some of those are just, outside. So it's been a great role. Really been exciting for the last couple of years here.
Yeah, for sure. So, so do you work with the customers and really drive kind of Fortinet's value proposition, or what's kind of the day-to-day parts of the job?
Yeah. So a lot of it is evangelizing, not just Fortinet. We've become mostly, I won't say a household name, but we're now at least an industry brand, thanks to a lot of work on our marketing department. Primarily, it is to look at it from a little bit more of a macro level and say, number one, what is the topic of the day? For most people today, that's ransomware. So if you're concerned with ransomware, what is your risk profile? What is your risk tolerance? And what should you do? What are the key things that you should do as an organization? And I think that's ultimately key, where if you could take tool 1 and vendor tool 2 and tool 3, mine's not to say, look, you should use vendor, Fortinet for this and vendor. It's really to say you should invest in email security. You should invest in user education and training. Some of those things we can provide, but really, again, to sort of take it up one level and have a relationship that's beyond a sales cycle. I joke with that, being in sales for so long, that we wish they wouldn't, but sales folks are going to get engaged when there's an opportunity. Hopefully they have a long-term engagement. The good sales folks do with their customers. But oftentimes you see these ebbs and flows where it's the end of a quarter, it's the end of a fiscal year. My goal and our role is really to be there throughout. So when there's not an opportunity and there is no sales on the table, but we can still help and we can still coach in that regard.
Yeah, it sounds like a very strategic role, and of course, you see field CISO across a lot of vendors these days now. So no,
Yeah.
it sounds like a pretty cool role. So I guess just touching on that, your topic there as well, a big conversation I wanted to talk to you about today, John, is the sales and the SE relationship. Now, as you know, being on both sides of the fence, you was 2 years in a sales position at Juniper. I
Yeah.
just want to hear from your side. What is that relationship like, and how can you make it kind of optimized?
Yeah, it is. And it was actually one of, when people say what are the most interesting chapters of a career, I think that was one of the most interesting. It was challenges of a level that I had not seen before, and you oftentimes don't even perceive. I came from the engineering background, so it was always, well, there was an us and them, right? But in reality, it's a team. The ultimate account teams, the ultimate sales SE and sales or account manager, it's Batman and Robin. It's Cagney and Lacey. It's these really, I date myself, but it's these great, there is a duo there that there are challenges in each role, and there are strengths for each individual, and the ultimate teams really complement those strengths. I like the term when people say they're better together, that
Yeah,
individually they have strengths, that an SE could design an architecture, could figure out what the problem is, and come up with a solution, a technical solution. And the account manager's job is to say, well, regardless of the solution that we think you need or we've designed, does it fit in your business? And does it align with your business priorities? And I think that's the benefit, where the SE can be abstracted from that and really work on the technical details and the underlying solution. The account manager has that benefit to say, yeah, I'm not really going to worry about what version this is and how these things plug together, but I am going to look back at the usually C level. That was probably one of the most interesting changes, was the ability to garner an audience with a customer at a level that I had never known before. It's a great thing now in my current role, but it also, as an account manager, you oftentimes talk to the CEO and the CFO, and you understand that, look, there's a budget to do these things. How do you fit into it? We don't just have one project. There isn't just one initiative. How do we balance this out? And how do you make this make sense to my business? And then really the SE partnered with that says, how do you make this make sense to the running of my business or the problem that we had? Uh, Really I think it's the most fascinating thing. And like I said, of the 10 or 12 years that I spent in SE leadership, was just a fantastic part of the career.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's really interesting. A point you mentioned there where you said you're better together. In recruitment, you see sometimes I think this is amazing when a sales guy goes to one business, the sales engineer follows him, or vice
Sure.
versa. I think that's an awesome testament to two people working amazing together as well. So I think
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty awesome when it works out. But what I want to ask you, John, is when doesn't it work out? What problems can they face between the relationship?
Yeah. And I think I always sort of envisioned it and communicated it. While they're overlapping, they're swim lanes. And it's when the folks don't know their lane, and they vary. I've had account teams and worked with account teams where there's, an SE who's essentially the salesperson, and an account manager who's really technical. So there's no right or wrong formula. Where it breaks is when there isn't an understanding and a mutual respect. And I think that's true in almost every relationship, which is it's built on respect and trust. And if that goes away, and it can, look, there's money involved. If you think of all the things that can, pollute a relationship, right? There's money, there's your career, there's trust, there's other people, there's perception, there's, how are you perceived by your company, by everyone around you. So if you lose that, and there's always a little bit of joking, there's lightheartedness of, the account manager, oh, he or she is just here to pick up the check, or pay for expenses, and that kind of ribbing, or the SE is the nerd. That's fine. That kind of stuff actually represents usually a great chemistry and relationship. It's when you get one level deeper where they're really when those people don't have, and they are throwing punches because they don't have that respect and trust for where the other is. When you realize they do have it, it's magic. You see account teams work together and they just know what the other one is going to do, and they know it'll be done. They trust that the process will be run, that the things will be completed, and they get to really just have fun with the job, benefit each other, and really just turns out to be the dynamic duo.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess for anybody listening to this who's maybe stepping into a new role as an account executive or an SE, what kind of advice would you give to them to work with their other partner or counterpart?
Yeah, and it's a great question. First, I think both are tremendous careers. I really think they are. There's some of the few, and they've if you read John Kerr's books about technical selling, I think he does a great job where he says, these are really good careers. They're not just a job. And there really is the ability to take things across multiple organizations and grow with it. I think that the biggest challenges are trust the others, have faith in what you do, but communicate. You can't over communicate. And I think the flaw a lot of people think is, well, communication means that we have that weekly sync up and we talk about all the, the deals that are on the table and what we're doing to move the ball. That's not communication. Communication really means that you set aside time, really don't even talk about work, and you just talk about how you approach work. You need to know that they're a person, and you need to know that they have a work-life balance. A lot of times the SE and AM, that role working for a vendor, you blend a lot of that time, right? The good news is the hours are flexible. The bad news is the hours are flexible. It means late nights. It means weekends of working, but it also means that, you can take a Tuesday afternoon to a kid's soccer match. It doesn't matter, right? There's beauty in that, but to understand the person and have that real communication to say, there's got to be a leader in communication. And I know a lot of people in modern day sort of think, no, there shouldn't be a leader, right? We should be complete equals. No, there will be someone who is the de facto communicator, whether, outwardly, inwardly. Usually that's the account manager, but not always. And there's no right or wrong. But to know when that's said, you don't want conflicting stories. You don't want you don't want somebody saying something and then someone just stepping up and saying the other. So they're very much in sync, and they understand, what each is going through.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's a powerful message as well about understanding that they're both people. And it's the same in any relationship, working relationship or anything. It's about actually caring for people and putting time into individuals and wanting one person to succeed because the other person will succeed as well. So no, I really like that, John. So yeah. I guess switching it back into more kind of your career. Obviously you've spent a lot of time in leadership positions. Obviously you've spent a lot of time in the SE and solution architects roles. How do you build a successful SE team?
Yeah, and I think it gets more and more challenging. It certainly is a challenge at an organization like Fortinet that has this huge portfolio of products. That's tough. I think it's easier if you have a narrower focus. But I think number one is just, again, I go back to communication. I'm actually surprised when I see teams that just don't communicate. You've got to spend time together. I guess maybe start over and start at the beginning when you're looking at hiring. And, you've got to hire people who bring strengths to the table that aren't there. That's, I think, now a known rule is, don't just hire people that are like yourself. So I think looking for people like that, knowing that you've got to have a diverse skill set, diverse point of view, getting them to interact with each other. And it doesn't have to be the silly, laser tag game where people bond after, a sales meeting, but really just putting people together. Some of the folks that have worked for me will joke and they get the joke of, I've rented Airbnb houses and then just put people together, sometimes without even a strict agenda, but saying, we're just going to spend time, and we're not going to sit and walk through, reports or things, but just be your natural self. And then you realize that when people bond together as just people, they then create a bond and they know that there's another person. If you're just, on a conference call and it's a name on a screen or an email, who cares? It's easy to say no to an email or, some sort of address. It's difficult when you want to help each other, when you know that person, right? That other, he or she they need help in that relationship or a certain time. They're also very lumpy businesses. So helping balance that out. You'll never get the kind of resources. You'll never have enough SEs to do all the jobs at hand. It's a lot of resource sharing, and they have to be, as a company, you can put in incentives and attaboys and pat on the back, but they have to want to help one another, and not because someone told them, but because they really want it. And I think you got to build that and then nurture it. And I think it's a challenge. And I think, and then I would say lastly to that, as people grow, make sure people have the chance to grow, make sure they've got a career path and places to go, enhancements that they can do. And if there's someone that's toxic in the organization, remove that quickly. I think Simon Sinek talks a lot about that, which is more important about the somebody who's toxic to your team than, 9 other people that are good for it. That one can really matter. So that's another part of it. And that's rare, but it's important to address so that, you don't get a different feeling across the whole group.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's a powerful message about the kind of, empowering your employees along the way as well, which is really cool. So I guess I think you mentioned something there about attracting the right talent. So I guess in terms of when you're headhunting, of course, I get involved in lots of these stuff being on the recruitment side, but I'd love to get your perspective. When you're looking for people for organizations, what type of things do you look for?
I'm sort of known for saying this. My slogan is constantly curious. That is the one thing that you can't teach. Someone has to want to know. And if you ask people, what's your story? What's your life story? If you ask them that and they realize that, yeah, they were the kid that, when they got a toy, they took it apart just because they wanted to take it apart. They wanted to know how it worked. That level of curiosity will diminish at some point throughout our lives. But you really want the people where it hasn't. And, at some point you'll go, I don't care. I don't care how that thing works. I just want it to work. And that's okay. There's no disrespect to that. But there is a certain personality trait that is so valuable in a systems engineer or sales engineer. And that is, how does it work? That's one of the great questions I ask, is the simple thing of, obviously, if you solve complex issues or do you have examples, but it's the browser question, right? Open a browser, open your computer and just don't be afraid to go too deep, but tell me how it works. And it's amazing that people that have worked in technology for 10 years will go, well, I don't know, something happens, a web page shows up, and I go, wow, there's like 100 things that happen in between, 1,000. Walk me through. And that to me is it's almost even a fun, have a pint of beer conversation where you go, look, these are the layers. It's built. And that's the part of, the engineering life that's fascinating. Like, it works. And, someone built it. There were standards, they were communicated, someone implemented it. There were flaws. That is, I think, knowing that is, you can tell good SEs when they understand and they get enthused by that. And then the bonus is if they understand business and they really say, why does it matter? One other question I ask people a lot is, to choose between 2 things, whether that's a routing protocol or a security protocol implementation. And I have a walkthrough. Tell me, if I had to choose between A and B, walk me through. And the SEs that go, oh, well, A has these attributes, B has these attributes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The ones that are good have one simple word to reply. Why? Why do you want to make that change? Why is it important to you? Now you can have a conversation. And often, honestly, you'll find out maybe it doesn't matter. Oh, I was just academic. I was just curious. That's okay. but the other person's wasted 20 minutes of time going down a rabbit hole. And that, again, that curiosity, but then appropriately applied, right? Of course, you want to be curious, but why? Why is this important? And I think that's another part of that interview part that, to me, I don't want to share all my secrets. Not kidding.
No, I love it. I love it. The two questions that are quite important. Obviously, it's about being curious enough and constantly curious, really. And I've got a book from Simon Sinek behind me about that type of stuff. And then of course, obviously the business acumen side of it is the sales engineers and solution architects are still heavily involved on that side as well. They're still customer facing, a lot of them, and it's about all of it kind of mixed together. So no, I really love that. But so I guess I had another gentleman on the podcast a few weeks ago, and we was talking about kind of more junior individuals and hiring and kind of diminishing the gap that we have within security. So what's your take on kind of looking at more junior profiles or people with no experience in security, and how do you train them up and make them become the curious, the business SE?
Yeah. And there is a huge gap, right? We don't have a jobs gap. We have a skills gap. And I think that's throughout the world now. And really, people are always looking for a reason. And I'd start with there is, start why. And this industry has grown faster than anyone would have imagined. We couldn't have trained enough people, and there weren't enough just structured training programs to create the kind of people we need. So I think the one thing is, and I've hired junior people, I've hired interns in my career, and I've worked with them for years. And the real key thing there, and I would encourage people if they're out and if they're looking, is communicate what it is that you are doing, what it is that you are working on. Because if you look at a resume and it really just says, this is a person, they have worked at, one job, entry level or unrelated, or they've gone to, say, a CERT program or a training program, which is good. I'm a fan of those, boot camp types or things of that nature, because they force you to study. It's the same thing a traditional university does. It just forces you to delay gratification for a long-term goal, and it forces you to take your time and your focus and be in training, studying. But I think the key difference in now looking at junior people is, what have you done? Tell me about it. Tell me that you've built a 3 Raspberry Pi home network where the thing listens to your garage door and creates, grabs a sensor that when the light meter goes on, that it automatically checks if the garage door is, I've heard some really cool stories. And what does that tell you? Curious, capable. And it's not a certification. It doesn't tell you that you can configure a checkpoint firewall, or a Fortinet no, it just says you're willing and you're wanting. And that is so key. And the traditional resume doesn't have place for that, but it should. And experience should be life experience.
Yeah.
Look for that.
I love that. I think, especially on the technical side as well with the skill gap. And I think having that kind of, you're right, the curious mindset about creating technologies or even just giving things a go and being really curious. I love it. I really do. And it's honestly, I think some of the listeners may take a lot away from that as well. But so no, that's fantastic. So I guess just kind of taking it back a tiny little bit, because I really wanted to get a little bit more about the sales and the SE partnership. And so I guess them two working together, everything's going well. How do you incentivize the team properly? I know, obviously, because from conversations I've had in the past many times, is the SE believes that they can do the sales job, and they try the sales job, and then they think, maybe not. So how do
That's come up a few times? Yeah. They're really, and they're well incentivized roles. That's the other part that I think is important. And it's not all about money. But it is the idea that you really get to solve problems for multiple organizations. It's always sort of the way I've lured people. And I said, you don't see too many people that move to the vendor space and then move back. And it's not because it's better. It's not because the other is worse. It's because if you are in an organization say you're in an organization that's just an IT shop that we make, we sell tires. If I've been there now for 10 years in my career, I would have learned most likely how to navigate and manipulate that environment, that company, because there really isn't much outside of that. Maybe there's some vendors and whatnot, but in reality, you're going to learn how to navigate the problems of the tire company. The difference being in the vendor space, and when you are an account manager and an SE, it's why I think they're such great roles, is you get to look at that. First, you don't get mired in the politics of the business. So it's the tire shop and the donut shop, and maybe one has weird politics and strange things, and leadership that's overbearing, or they don't empower their employees, whatever it is. You don't have to deal with any of it. That's beautiful. You get to move and say, this is a distinct problem. We get to solve it. And here's a distinct problem. We get to solve it. So I think the reward, and you really want to find this, is people who are rewarded by solving those problems, doing exactly what it is that they're supposed to do, that they want to do. I used to say this, and a lot of SEs laughed at me, which is, don't focus on the money. A lot of times, reps and SEs get bound up in, here's my quota, and here's my number, and here's my comp, and where's the split, and how much will I make as an effective pay? I said, if you do what you do and do it well and smart, the money will just happen. It's almost this thing that happens in the background, and you're not logging in, and obviously you have to live at your means or below your means, but you're not logging in every day to check the balance, and they tend to be well-compensated roles. So let that happen while you focus on solving real problems. And that reward back to an account team, they congratulate each other, they acknowledge each other. And it's more than just, team meeting, rah, they had the magic touch. It's outside of that. And knowing those real skills that they bring, you can just feel it between effective teams. They know why they're good, and they just appreciate each other. There's names that pop in my head right now as I say that, which is funny. Of the years that I've worked, there's names that just pop in, and the almost faces of a pictogram that just, I go, oh yeah, they work together so well.
Yeah,
it's rewarding.
No, for sure. And I think that's you've hit on a real key point there about kind of focusing on the problems, focusing on the customer, helping the customer get through their problems and solutions. A lot of the times in security, the customer's gone through something tragic, a breach or anything along those lines. So they need help when a lot of these situations are going on. So yeah, no, I really like that. It's about don't focus all on compensation or anything like that, because that'll just run in the background with the success that you have with your customers and your team. So no, I think it's a real key point to take away from that.
Nice. Yeah, it really is. There's that ability, that takeaway hopefully can lead people down, give them in the right path.
For sure. And I always ask this ending question, John. I think it's always a pretty interesting question. So sometimes people find it quite hard to answer. But what advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career?
That is a good question. And the number one thing that I think would be network more than you even think possible. Sometimes that's harder for SEs, for technical minded people. Maybe they aren't as extroverted. I told an individual once that worked for me, I said, never miss the chance to make an introduction. You don't have to be rude about it or interrupt a conversation, but I've never been offered a job in my career by someone I didn't know. And that's because I've networked and kept connections with people. And I think that is ultimately important. There's sort of that rule of, treat everyone well. And I think that's important, at any level, at any scale in an organization or your life. So I think, you don't burn bridges that way, and you always keep those doors open. But it's amazing. Even the role at Fortinet, I knew the person who was here for years, and we just stayed in touch. And it just happened to, we were talking one day, and it just sort of said, this is really interesting. And so it wasn't, a debt or anything like that. It was just networking, staying connected, understanding, people where they are in their lives. And, you're not going to check in with people every day, maybe not every week, but maybe it's once a month, or, and when you do have those connections, foster them. and it really does matter. So that'd be the one thing. And I don't think I've done as good a job as I could have in my career. But I really, if I had to go back and whisper in my young ear, that'd be it. So great question.
Yeah. No, I love the answer as well. I think, especially in a day and age like today, we've got all these platforms, and it's easy as just sending a text to somebody to check how they are. And it's, I think it's a bit more of a personal level as well. You need to get to know people and really care about actual people, really, and not just think about the end result on everything. So, no, I really appreciate it, John. And again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I think it's been some interesting conversations gone through, but no, again, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully maybe one day in the future we can do it again.
You bet. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Elliot.
Thank you very much, John.